We are Muskegon County at Work, spotlighting workers of local governments throughout our county, revealing what it takes to make our communities comfortable and safe. Hello, everyone. DJ Hilson as your host here for Muskegon County Municipalities at Work. And today I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing Tony Gutierrez. He wears a couple of different hats, but we're going to talk about a really important hat that you probably don't know a whole lot about. So let's dig in and really get to know how this particular piece of government works here in Muskegon County. Tony, how are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Good. I always like to start my interviews by having my guests talk a little bit about themselves before we get into the nitty-gritty. So introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Okay, awesome. Tony Gutierrez. I've lived here in the city of Norton Shores all my life and married, have 2 kids, and we enjoy the city. It's a good place to live and great environment for the children. Myself, I've been in the fire service for 26 years. And I started here at Norton Shores as a part-time firefighter and did 20 years here. And then 2008, I got hired as an aircraft rescue firefighter at the Gerald R. Ford National Airport and worked my way up through the chain to the fire chief most recently. And then I was just hired at the city of Norton Shores as the fire chief in February. And for the HAZMAT side of the house, I've been in the HAZMAT team since 2000. And it's almost 25 years. And I've worked my way up the food chain there, too, all the way to the HAZMAT chief, person that leads the HAZMAT team. I like to get involved in the fire service and the HAZMAT, so got a lot of different hats that I wear, including everything from being an instructor to a HAZMAT technician. So.
Wow. I mean, that's quite a storied career, and certainly want to thank you for your service as a first responder. Dedicating your life to that, because that is a dedication. And
definitely.
So thank you for that. I want to start a little bit differently before we get into talk a little bit. You know, you've held a couple of different leadership positions, including currently. How would you describe what it takes to be a good leader in the area where you're at?
I would say one of the biggest things with being a fire chief or any type of fire officer is being a servant leader. Servant leadership is basically empowering, inspiring, bringing the team together. And that's part of the job as, fire service leader is bringing everybody together. We got one task, one mission, that's to save lives. So that's our goal. That's the fire services can be tough at times, whether it's a, tough call. We've had some tough ones lately at the city. But everybody pulling together, critical incident stress team working, doing its magic and bringing people together and working through it. But it's keeping everybody positive and moving in the right direction. That's one of the biggest things that I see is the job of the chief is to motivate, inspire, empower your people, build the future leaders for the department.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I'm sure you've seen this. As you get older. Mm-hmm. The folks coming in are younger,
yes,
a little bit different. How have you survived the generational gap in the fire and HAZMAT service?
One of the biggest things with the generational gap that we have is everyone's down on the younger generation because, they don't know how to use tools. They don't know how to do simple mechanical aptitude items. They're not very sociable, mainly because they're brought up in the environment of all the electronics. So one of the things that I'd focus on is getting people in front of other folks, whether it's teaching, just simple little things, bringing the guys together and having this person talk in front of them and building that confidence. Mechanical aptitude is always one of those things. Well, we have to spend a little bit more time with people than what we used to have to. So just, getting firefighters, the senior ones to spend a little bit more time with those that don't have all those skills and get them to where they need to be.
Instead of ripping their hair out.
You got it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about HAZMAT. Not a lot of folks, I think, understand and appreciate how important HAZMAT is and how, I guess, what purpose it serves. So let's talk a little bit about you describing exactly what HAZMAT is and why it's critically important for county, the county itself?
So just like the fire service, people know that we respond to things, but the hazmat side of it is like, we didn't even know they had a team. So we're kind of like behind the scenes. You don't know it because a lot of our equipment and vehicles look the same as the fire trucks. So one thing that we've done over the years is try to get more public involvement, get out to like the fire prevention open houses and stuff like that throughout the county. But hazardous material as a whole, our job is to mitigate any hazards. And a lot of the times the fire departments will be first on scene. They take care of the initial stuff. And then if there's something that they're uncomfortable with or something they don't have a lot of knowledge in, they call us. And a lot of what we do is phone consults, whether it's, a fuel pump that's leaking fuel over the, ground and they got it stopped, but what do they do with it? And we'll give them advice and help them through it. And then there's the other ones where you go to a hotel that's got a chlorine leak and a CO leak, and you have to work through all of our testing to determine what it is. And then once we figure it out, we mitigate it and then make it safe or habitable for that person to move back in there.
So what does the team, is it a separate team or does it draw from local departments? So
we draw from local departments and the chemical industry. Currently, we have 2 folks that are on the team that work for chemical manufacturers in our county. So that's a great asset to have because one of them actually is awesome because they deal with a lot of the chemicals that we have in our county. And they have experience dealing with everything from the bulk containers to a rail car. So it's a benefit for us. But otherwise, we try to pull from the fire department. We also have police officers that have been on the team in the past, which has helped us with evidence preservation. And then we have we call them hazmat medics because they go through specialized training, but Trinity Healthcare provides us with hazardous material medics, and they're there to support us in the event we have an incident. They take care of our team members.
Let's talk a little bit about the safety involved in this. Obviously, when people think of firefighters, they can envision, the coats, the helmets, maybe the oxygen tank on the back and everything else. What's the typical hazmat when you guys are actually called in on scene? What are you gearing up with?
So one of the things that we do, the fire service is always like a rush. Get your gear on, get inside, get things happening. Hazmat world, we kind of peel back a little bit. So we're trying to, mitigate the hazard, but we're also looking at what are we dealing with. So we kind of, slow that down a little bit, and then we determine based on what's going on what PPE we're going to wear. We have 4 different types, everything from what we currently wear now to a level A suit that basically like a moon suit. And but our typical is our regular turnout gear that we respond to fires with. We can take care of a lot of things with that. Once we start getting into some of the, not so good chemicals, then we put on special protective suits. So like if we went into a level B suit, that's basically a non-encapsulating suit, but it's all special material. We'll have boots, 2 sets of gloves, our SCBA that we wear on our back, face mask, and a helmet. And then we bring in equipment with us too, so we can test things to help us determine what we're actually dealing with. So it's more of an analytical testing than it is, we're just going in and throwing a bunch of stuff out there.
Yeah, so it's interesting that the sort of the difference between firefighting and going in as a hazmat person, like you said. Firefighters, it's you get there as quick as you can and you start working on. You're focused on fire essentially, right? Pretty, I won't say simple task, but you see it and then that's where you go. I got to believe that in the hazmat world, there are some chemicals you can see, but some you can't.
Exactly.
And how do you make those determinations?
So just like with the fire service, we have the 3 incident priorities: life safety, incident stabilization, property conservation. So our goal is if there's somebody still inside, to get in there and get them out and then make it safe. But we do testing with our, presumptive analysis testing. So we have everything from papers, like pH paper. Everyone probably in chemistry played with pH paper, to a device that's $75,000, and we can put, liquids and solids on there, and it'll give us an idea of what it is. So we're more of take that step back and then go in, make sure it's safe for our people. We have risk management that we do, and then we're bringing in testing equipment, and then we narrow it down or classify it to to one of the 9 hazard classes, anything from a gas to, a toxic, flammable liquid, that sort of stuff. And that's what our focus is on, classifying it so we can mitigate it. And it could be as simple as going in and turning a valve, or it could be we have to go and plug and patch something.
Oh, so so ultimately, as we're talking about, and I guess what I'm envisioning is, as you indicated, we've got some chemical plants, or we've got, we're a manufacturing county, right?
Yep.
Which means that things are being introduced during the manufacturing process, and a lot of it is, I'll say, it's not something that you would want to be exposed to.
Correct.
And so I'm given the fact that you said you have the ability to patch. Are you talking about welding? What are we talking about? So
usually when we're plugging and patching, it could be a 55-gallon drum, intermodal bulk container. It could be a pipe, leaky pipe, tons of different things that we could run into. We just had an incident in October where we had to deal with anhydrous ammonia. But once we figured out how the system worked, we were able to narrow it down to an area and isolate it. And that's our goal. That's what we're trained to do and try to figure out. So once we get that, we can isolate the chemical. Then that in a sense stops the leak, and then we can ventilate or usually work with the fire department on how we can get that chemical out of that area, whether it's a building or a huge commercial structure.
So let's talk a little bit. The one thing that I don't want to forget is you talked about evidence collection, so I want to come back to that. But let's talk a little bit about training. Obviously, well, I guess you tell me. I'm assuming, unlike the fire service, which are taking hundreds, if not thousands, of calls a year, on average. So it's a 2-part question. On average, how many times is the HAZMAT team being called out, and then how do you fill in those gaps with training?
So in a nutshell, we're on average, 10 calls, we're averaging 10 calls a year. And they could be everything from, like I said, a phone consult to, like the hotel incident we had. So just depends on what's going on. We can't predict what's going to happen. And then our training, we train twice a month. And our training consists of everything from PPE to our monitors. For example, we have 17 different detection devices. And in a nutshell, you could say we're all volunteers. So we have to stay up on that stuff because it's a lot of technology that we have to use. And we could be doing, incident command. We could dress out people in certain PPE. We could be working on plugging, patching. We could do exercises with other HAZMAT teams. We could work with the 51st Civil Support Team, which is, the Air National Guard's HAZMAT team. We're very active in Region 6, which is the west side of the state, with the HAZMAT teams. So we're doing a lot of training. So on average, we have to maintain 24 hours per the MIOSHA, but we're way beyond that. We're close to 60 hours that we do every year. And then all of our technicians, once you become a technician, there's a lot of training you have to do. So the initial bare minimum is having, HAZMAT ops, which all firefighters have. If you're not one of those, then we bring in training and get you there. And then you have to go to the state's school, which is 80 hours of technician training. And once you get done with that, then we have more training that you go through. And there's always stuff that you can advance in, whether it's evidence preservation, air monitoring. There's a lot of different things you can get involved with. So being a technician, you're not just doing, easy calls. There could be a rail car. It could be a over-the-road tanker. It could be an unknown substance that we, could go on, which we've had quite a few of those over the years. And we have test kits that can help us determine all that. But once again, the training's important.
So, I know, at least from my connections, I guess, with law enforcement, they do a lot of tabletop exercises, or they'll do active shooter training in either a school building sometimes or a vacant building. You mentioned Region 6 and even working with the military. I mean, from the smallest event to I'm assuming you're always preparing and training for that large scale event that we hope never happens.
Yes.
And how does that cooperation work with all the various entities that would be involved in something like that went down.
So that's one of the things that we've been focusing on as a region. Is we started in Region 6 a HAZMAT meeting where we bring the 5 teams together so we could be consistent on our training. Kind of those focuses like PPE. So we're kind of all in the same boat. We've even purchased all the same like level A suits, which has been great. So that way, if you go to another team to provide assistance, you're all doing the same thing, and that's important, having the kind of that standard across the board. And then the 51st provides a lot of support to us because they have the money and the budget, and they can bring in a lot more analytical testing. But understanding what they're capable of doing, and vice versa, understanding which all the teams what they're capable of doing helps us out. So if we need something, for example, Grand Rapids Fires contact us for our flaring stuff, so we can attach to like I got to keep this simple, but like the trucks that bring propane to your house, for those that live out in the rural areas, we can connect to that and we can offload that. But how we do that is by burning it. And if there was a leak and we needed to get that product off quickly, we can flare it. So we connect our hoses and stuff, and then we can offload that without it becoming a problem where it could levy or explode. So we have that kind of that mutual agreement amongst all of us that we're all on the same sheet of music and working together. In the event we have something major that happens, we're there to help each other out.
So I guess the key takeaway there for the folks, the residents, the people that live, work, and play here in Muskegon County is that, we're prepared.
Yes.
That there are folks that are working every day to be ready to serve and protect in the event that something, a major disaster comes our way.
Yes, and we've had a few over the years. Wet Hall Leather in 1999, there was one of the facility folks there that passed away due to putting the wrong product into the wrong tank, created a chemical reaction, off-gassed, and the person passed away. But we had to get there, mitigate it, figure out what's going on, which we were able to do. Lomac was another one. That was in 2000, if I remember correctly. That was chemicals they didn't realize they had on site. We've been to Michigan's Adventure a couple times for chlorine issues.
I remember that.
I think 2014 was the last major one. So yeah, we're always training for that next big event. Hopefully, knock on wood, it doesn't ever happen, but that's why we train and prepare for that. And having the team here, I think, is a huge asset for our county. In the event something happens, we can get there and hopefully mitigate and save lives at the same time.
That's fantastic. I want to circle back to the evidence preservation aspect of this, because, certainly I think a lot of folks don't appreciate and understand that sometimes, even as a firefighter, there is an investigation arm to that, and HAZMAT is no different. When have you, or when would you use the evidence protection or preservation?
So one of those big things was during Wet Hall Leather. You definitely had to make sure T's crossed, I's dotted, because afterwards, because there was a death, MIOSHA is going to look into that. So they went through all our training records. They went through all the stuff that we did on scene, our procedures, and they looked to see if we followed the proper process. Up into, obviously taking that person out. We've had instances where we've gone to a facility and, for example, having white powder substance, we did a lot of that after 9/11, and, everybody, if they had any powder on their mail, it was anthrax. So that's a special case where you have to take it, bag it, what address, who's touched it, did somebody open it, all that stuff. And then the police are great at that kind of stuff. And we're actually bringing on an officer currently. And they're having that person there has helped us on a few incidents that we've had in the last year. We had one around that fall time where they did a distraction at a facility and walked out with some goods from that company. And, it could be seen as a domestic terrorism event. So then you have to go back and make sure all the paperwork squared away, all the evidence that was collected is not multiple people are handling it. So we want to make sure that this is kept our evidence process. So that way no one can say that somebody put something else in there or we had different substances that were put in there. It's all this person handled it from here to the end. And it was followed our procedure, and then we hand it over to the police.
Yeah, I certainly recall back in the days when making your own meth was a big deal, and obviously it involved chemicals.
Yes,
and the labs themselves were very volatile, and so I know HAZMAT was always a part of the processing of any scene that when we came across a homemade lab.
Yes, and that's one of those things where you got makeshift chemists putting together chemicals, which a lot of people don't understand when you put things together, what they can do, and flying by the seat of their pants, basically. And it could be a dangerous situation. And some people have been hurt, obviously, by mixing the wrong stuff at the wrong time.
So if there are young and inspiring individuals out there that are watching this, which I hope they are, what does it take if they're sitting back thinking, that seems like a line of work that I might be interested in? What sort of path would you guide them on, whether it's associates, college degree? Where should they go?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different routes. One would be the fire service, start in the fire service, and then a lot of firefighters don't like hazmat because they see it as like it's worst case scenario. And it's actually, once you get involved and understand it, it's not that big of a deal. It's you have a lot of information, know how to decipher it, and it comes out pretty simple. So get in the fire service, and then we usually require folks to have 3 to 5 years in the fire department, so they have an idea of how incident command works, how incidents happen, take place, how to work with the hazmat team. And then we bring you in, and then we get you on the team. We have a small interview process you go through, and then if we approve, then we send you a training. We also have the other folks in the chemical manufacturing world that we bring in. Most have, a bachelor's degree in chemistry or biology or whatever it may be, relating to something with the sciences. And that helps us too. And then they come in and they don't have all the fire training. So we got to bring them up to speed on some of the incident command and other miscellaneous items, but then we can get them in the pipeline too and to get them going through the training. But it's a neat and unique world, and it's, emergency response, but we're taking that step back still, but we still have a job to do, which is save lives and mitigate that hazard so people go back to the normal life.
How many folks currently are involved with our local hazmat team?
We have 12 hazmat technicians at this time, and then we have roughly 6 hazmat medics, and we're always looking for more people because we had about 7 years ago, we had a lot of folks retiring from the fire service as a whole. So they retired from the hazmat team and moved on. So still looking for those young, energetic youth that are interested in the sciences. So, because there's a lot of unique things that we get to do, a lot of cool places you get to go to and train, opens you up for a lot more training when it comes to hazmat. There's federal schools that you can go to. A lot of our members have been down to New Mexico, where they do explosives training for a week. We've been down to Anniston, Alabama, where we work with live nerve agents. So a lot of the testing papers and stuff that we have, you always get to hear what it does, but there you get to see what it does in real life because you're dealing with, sarin, a live agent. So there's a lot of good, unique, fun training that you get to go to, and then we get to bring that back to the team, share that training and knowledge, and that makes us that much better as a team moving forward.
Excellent. Well, any other words of, advice, knowledge that you want to give the citizens of Muskegon County as it relates to hazmat? Maybe not words of warning, but if they suspect that something doesn't either smell right or they're seeing a reaction of some kind, what should they do?
As always, call 911. The fire department will show up and they'll determine through their risk management process if the hazmat team's needed, and then we respond. And a lot of people, some people ask why it takes so long. Well, we're all basically volunteers and we come from all over the county, so we got to go to a location, pick up our hazmat vehicle, and then drive it there. So it's 40, 45 minutes depending on what's going on before we get there. sometimes it can be quicker based on, the need, but, a lot of people, this is one thing I wanted to throw out there today is a lot of people wonder like, hey, I find this chemical in my garage or, my grandpa's garage. What do I do with it? Don't pour it down the drain. There's, that Muskegon County hazardous waste. You can take it there and a lot of times they can dispose of it properly. If you call your local fire department, that's who they should, refer you to, but please don't pour stuff down drains or, bring them worse into your house and pour it down the drain. Cause a lot of times the chemicals they're using inside can also react and, that causes other issues that we don't want to have to deal with. So
It's actually a good way to sort of end our time together is, everybody I think in their garage or in their house has bottles of things that they bought a long time ago for a particular purpose and it just sits there.
Yes.
And having used the hazardous waste dump off myself, excellent piece of advice is don't dump it either on the ground,
Right.
in the drain, get rid of it the proper way, right?
Correct.
Excellent. Well, Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For being a part of this program. It's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, good luck in your new role as chief.
Appreciate that.
Because I know that the city of Norton Shores obviously takes pride in a lot of their services, and as you know, you worked there for quite a few years. It's a good place to be.
It's a great place to be.
Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our segment for today. Continue to check us out on social media. It's Muskegon County Municipalities at Work as we continue to dive deeper into how certain jobs and affect how we as citizens live, work, and play here in Muskegon County. As always, thank you to the ingenuity of one Mike Vogus.